Penalty points for so-called dashboard diners who dump their food rubbish, speed awareness-style anti-littering courses, massive fines. That is what one former minister is calling for to tackle Britain's dirty waste problem.
Clean Up Britain says England's considered the worst place for littering in the Western world, with more than 2 million pieces of litter dropped every day, costing taxpayers more than £1 billion a year in clean-up fees.
Joining us now is the woman who says it's time to get tough on people who treat the roadside like a rubbish dump, former Conservative Party chair Baroness Warsi. We're also joined by Andrew Pratt, a clean-up volunteer who's at an illegal dumping site in Preston, on the site of the former Preston to Longridge railway line. Andy, first of all, tell us about the fly tipping, the litter, the rubbish around you, and what you're doing about it.
Yeah, good morning, Ed. This is the old railway line, as you've said, to Longridge. It's been disused for about 40 years, and as a consequence, people have just used it to fly tip. Domestic rubbish, but also lots of industrial stuff as well. We've had volunteers on it for only 2 days, and we've shifted somewhere in the region of 5 tonnes of rubbish. So your quote of 2 million bits of litter, well, we've got pretty more than that here. I estimate we've probably got about 100 tonnes of fly tipping down this line.
And Andy, is this just members of the public throwing something over the fence, or is it people who should be paying to get rid of commercial waste and decide that this is cheaper, even if it's illegal, to get around having to pay to dispose of industrial waste properly?
It's a combination. So we've got a number of households that have just used it as a bin. They've chucked the stuff over the walls, and you can see where they've done that. A little bit further down the line, there's old bathtubs, there's mattresses, there's carpets that have come from houses. I'm going to presume some have been there many years. As I said, the line's been closed for 40 years. And then further down the line, this goes for a whole mile into Preston, you've got some industrial stuff where people have just very illegally, it's all illegal, but chuck their rubbish over. So you've got some, you've got some industrial rubbish further down.
Andy Pratt, the work you are doing as a volunteer is absolutely stellar, but you should not have to be doing it. So you now have a baroness on your side, Baroness Warsi. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
But you are seething. I mean, how do those images make you feel? Because you've taken over, haven't you, as patron of Clean Up Britain. This is the thing that gets you going.
It does, and actually all credit to people like Andy and others, heroes up and down this country who spend their whole time litter picking and cleaning up, but all we are doing is mopping up whilst the tap is still on. And as somebody who has litter picked now for nearly 2 decades, who's had her family out litter picking with her, and who every time I go out on a walk obsess and talk about how dirty this country is becoming, I mean, the facts speak for themselves. The 2015 Select Committee report said that we are the dirtiest nation in the Western world, and that increasingly year on year more and more rubbish is being put out on our streets, and it's everything from littering through to major commercial fly tipping. And I think we have to now take a moment where we say, if we have a sense of national pride, if we want to have some sense of belonging in this country that we all share, then we have to have a national strategy on rubbish and on fly tipping. It cannot go on like this.
One of the, I mean, we cannot just say, oh, my goodness, what do we do? We have to have some suggestions. And one of yours is, if you go to a drive-through to pick up your burgers, then your registration number should be printed on the bag so that if that bag ends up on the side of the road, the driver of the car is punished.
Yes, and so this is one of a number of suggestions that we're starting to come forward with to say, look, what we've talked about up to now, which is fining, hasn't worked. When I'm out litter picking, the things that you find the most are beer cans, energy drinks, food wrappers from fast food outlets, all sorts of, kind of weird and wonderful stuff. And we have to be able to say, right, let's go back to the source. Where is this coming from? And that includes, the dashboard dining culture, which we're all now familiar with. You go up, you pick up a coffee, you pick up up a takeout, you pick them up at McDonald's, and then what you see down country verges is this food being thrown out, sometimes in lay-bys, sometimes just at the side of the road. And I think it's because people feel that it's a crime without consequence, that they're never going to be caught.
I don't think people think it's a crime.
Well, it is a crime for a start. But secondly, they think it's a crime without consequence. They think that they're not going to be caught. It's not going to be traced back to them. So what? There's other litter out there. I'll just add to it.
So if I was doing litter picking alongside you, we picked up a McDonald's bag and it had a reg printed on it. What would we do next?
I think it will be a start, because I think the minute people realise that their piece of litter is going to be identified back to them, I think people will think twice.
But what would the
dispose of it.
consequences be? Would we call the police? Would we call the council? Would we call McDonald's?
Actually, can I just read you an email from Morris on this point? I filmed a fly tipper on my phone, had a close-up and his reg number. I phoned the council, who told me to phone the police. On phoning the police, I was told it was a council problem, to get in contact with them. I was given the runaround by both. What's the point when no one is interested? And it's all very well collecting the registration, your dash cam, but if in the end the police think it's not our issue and the council thinks we haven't got the staff to do anything about it, nothing happens.
And this is exactly what we're finding at Clean Up Britain. It's why we've actually put out over 80 cameras across 19 sites, where we're starting to take action ourselves, because what we're saying is we will get you the evidence, we will make sure it's watertight, we will make sure you can prosecute off the back of it. 20% of our councils have not issued a single fine for littering.
A single one?
A single one.
Even though there's a million a year?
Even though there are millions of pieces of rubbish being dropped on a daily basis.
There are 42,000 a year, which is a lorry load. How could you not have a single fine?
Yeah, because I think some local authorities think, well, we've got other priorities. People are trying to push this around and say, not my problem, not my problem, not my problem. And part of the campaign that I want to run is, first of all, make sure that we pin responsibility to who should be doing this. Secondly, making sure that there is accountability for those that drop rubbish, including hitting them where it hurts. So if you're throwing rubbish out of a car, and all the statistics show that it's not pedestrians as much as it is people in vehicles who are throwing rubbish out, then you get penalty points on your licence. And if you're not prepared to take those penalty points and instead you're prepared to go on a litter awareness course, like we do with speed awareness courses, then take that. And if you're not prepared to take that, then maybe you should go out and start litter picking. And maybe you need to see the consequence of your actions. This has got to be a behaviour change. There has to be a national campaign. We have to start saying in this country, enough is enough. This is shameful that we are the dirtiest nation in the Western world and that we are slowly sinking under rubbish.
Enforced litter picking would be a good penalty.
Completely.
What do you think about the fact that, for instance, local councils used to collect larger items, you know, perhaps the stuff that people would fly tip? Now, in certain areas, you have to book an appointment to go to a tip and drop off your litter. If you put obstacles like that in the way, surely that means people are more likely to leave it outside a house, on a street, at a side of a disused railway track, rather than go to the tip.
Well, first of all, I accept that there are barriers, including booking appointments, including having to get a permit, including in some places having to pay for it, including in some places having to travel for 45 minutes before you can find one of these disposal sites. So all of these are barriers. But I don't accept the mindset, well, because it's difficult, we'll just dump it on somebody else and make it somebody else's problem.
I'm not suggesting that's not a good mindset.
No,
it
exactly.
is the reality.
So we have to start with, first of all, tackling that mindset, challenging it, naming and shaming people, having some high-profile prosecutions, have people lose their licences off the back of this,
and
but
the police
also alongside that.
Who should you report to?
If it's a crime. Because you say it's a crime.
Yeah, of course. So this is part of the problem.
It is a crime. Do the police think it's their job?
The police don't think it's a priority and the council don't think it's their priority. And that's why part of this has got to be a clear direction from government that this is a priority. To be fair, some things were done about 2 years ago and about 12 months ago. In fact, about this time 2 years ago, new funding was announced as well. But I think it has to be seen as a priority. If you go speak to people in their local authorities or people up and down this country, from the countryside to cities, from towns to villages, this is an issue.
But would you, I think Ed's point is, are you calling the police when you find, you know, someone's fly tipped, or are you calling the council?
The first thing I do is call the council, and often I'm told that they can't find the culprit.
I think we're going to talk to the minister from the local government ministry, Alex Norris, in just a few minutes' time. We'll be able to ask him, do they have a grip?
Yeah, and he wants more homes. So more people generating more rubbish and more pressure on councils. Baroness Warsi, thank you very much indeed.
Good luck with the campaign.
Thank you.
Always an issue